I have is in traveling around the country looking for advantages for Paragon and getting different perspective. I realize fully that being in one store for most of my life is an advantage, but it's also an extreme disadvantage because you don't get to see anything else outside in the market. So more recently I've been traveling and taking a look at what's going on, and I ran into Lisa, I think it was 2012, at a
ran into us.
Ran into her at a meeting, and I didn't know who she was, and I learned that she was the #1 Fiat dealer in the world. And I noticed a couple of things. One, she was the #1 Fiat dealer in the world, and two, she was a woman. I thought, that's pretty cool, Fiat dealer. Then I found out when she spoke, and she had that twang, that she's from Texas. And I tried to imagine something more difficult than selling Fiats in Texas. And then I realized she was the #1 selling Fiat dealer, I think it was in the world, right? And I thought, that's pretty cool. I got to get to know her and see what her what she was able to do. And I realized that she's an absolute beast. She's an absolute beast. I mean that in a good way. So that before somebody, I called some guy a beast and he got all upset with me. But she's a cleaner. And in talking with her, I realized I had yet another blind spot. That blind spot was that our audience, our staff, should mimic the customers that we serve. And for the most part, it does. But when it comes to females and female opportunities in the dealership, we could probably do a better job. And as I got a little bit further evolved, and I started going to some meetings with some of these tech companies, Google and Facebook, I saw that not only did they have a very good mix male to female ratio, but a lot of the people in senior leadership positions at these tech companies were female. And they were brilliant, and they were completely sharp. And I realized that this is probably a big opportunity for us. And it's got to start at the ground level, because if we're going to have the resources to draw from, we've got to start at the entry level at sales and or BDC and have programs designed to encourage women to join us, have schedules that are friendly for lifestyles of women, and then to be able to career path them up in the organization. Just so we're clear, in 1982, my first boss in the automobile industry was Nancy Phillips. She's a woman. She is bright. She is super sharp. She is super successful in the automobile business, and to this day, she's one of the most successful dealer brokers in the country. So I really should have learned from an early part of my career that the future is female. Our current boss, my current boss, Edith Singer, is a woman. And so, I think that sets a really good example. And more recently, Lisa and I decided to make a commitment to see if I could help promote females in the automobile business to make them more of an active part of our management and leadership team. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Well, okay, first of all, I want to thank all of you for welcoming me into your house today. And all you guys that are sitting there going, oh my God, I want to assure you this is a win for everybody in the room, so I'll get there in just a minute. It is just my supreme honor to sit in front of the #1 sales team in the nation. I only work with what I call the 2%ers. The other 98% are never going to get it. I don't waste my time. There's not enough money in the universe. You have to be in the 2% club for myself or my team to even show up and to work with you.
You are in the top 1/10 of 1%.
I was going to go.
Come on, 1/10 of 1%. And sometimes, guys, we forget this, right? Sometimes we forget this, and I take for granted what you do every day.
You do take for granted. I'm going to tell you, first of all, and I told them this every time I come here, and sometimes y'all don't see me because I'm kind of stealth.
No.
I get in, I get out, I get in, I get out, whatever. But I've told Brian this more than once. You've got the best looking, best dressed, sharpest, most professional sales team, no lie, that I've ever seen in the country.
Yeah,
you guys show up every single day because you're in it to win it. You look professional, therefore you're getting paid like you're professional, as you should. Because you guys and ladies and gentlemen are the ones who keep the automobile business going forward. And I don't know, and maybe your boss doesn't tell you, but I'm going to tell you, the entire country watches what every single one of you do every single day. Paragon Honda and Acura are the absolute pinnacle in the automotive industry. And so for you guys to be able to be on a team that is so world famous. And when I say world famous, I mean world famous. I was at a Honda dealership in Canada, I don't know, up in Toronto. This was, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And this general manager came, he's like, I stalk you on Facebook. Oh, shocker, right? And I said, yeah. And of all the people I know, and I know a few, celebrities, whatever it may be, he said, you know Brian Benstock, don't you? And I'm like, yes. And he goes, okay, do you have about 20 minutes? And so you can kind of give me a download on what Paragon Honda does. And I said, honey, it would take 20 weeks to tell you what Paragon Honda does to be number one. But I told that leader, it starts with you. And it starts with your sales team, who half of them out there, they don't look like they're here to work, they look like they're here to wash the cars on the lot. And that's your sales team. So it starts with showing up well every single day. And like I said, so that right there sets the bar for success. And I mean, like, I'm not kidding y'all, in a suit and tie. No, I mean, there's not another dealership in the country, even luxury, that I walk into. They're all in, you know, the polo shirts and khakis. And I'll tell you, I mean, I didn't make my salespeople. I almost kind of went the opposite way, right? Because we were this funky lifestyle brand. We were early adopters. We actually launched the Fiat brand back to the United States. Boy, there was a lot of wine drank during that 6 months. I don't know about you.
Her staff had those, what are those with the red bottom things, shoes or Louboutins, and I mean, it looked like a fashion show in there. Pink everywhere. I mean, you took that Futures Female thing to a real extreme.
But I also had a lot of guys that worked with us, and a lot of guys that I called that get it and that are evolved. So I've had the honor of serving on the Women in Automotive Board for the last 4.5 years, and we were a group of industry professionals and leaders that came together, and we decided to form an organization that we would put on a conference, Women in Automotive. Now, the big running joke with all of the guys in the country was, and a couple of guys bought this domain name about 3 months ago, they bought Men in Automotive. I'm like, guys, there's already men in automotive. But that being said, we knew after a couple years, you know, it wasn't, and Brian has spoken at our conference, it wasn't about hear us roar. It was about how can we come together, both men and women leaders in our industry, and how do we evolve our industry? How do we help women, minorities, millennials, and men survive? Because when Brian talks about special scheduling and special stuff for women, men need it too. Everybody needs it. Everybody needs to have a life. How many people in this room have a family, have kids? You want to have a life, you know, you want to be able to work more efficiently. And that's what my team does. So about 2.5 years ago, I made the decision to sell my dealership. Why? I had a buyer. And I'm sure many people in this room can appreciate that. Now, if I had a Honda dealership in Austin, Texas, that sucker would not be for sale, or it would take Warren Buffett to buy it, right? Different kind of franchise. But, you know, I had the honor of leading what I think was the greatest team in the nation back in 2012. And I made a pretty audacious bet with then the head of the Fiat brand. His name was Tim Kuniskis. He's now the head of Maserati and Alfa Romeo. Wonderful guy. I just adore him to this day. And I said, so let me back up. So I had heard Mr. Marchioni speak. Anybody heard of Sergio Marchioni?
Yeah,
Former?
So we showed some of the videos of Mr. Marchioni,
Yes.
and I really didn't pay enough attention to him while he was alive, unfortunately. And you had mentioned him a number of times, but we played for the team about a half an hour video, and it really showed just what a charismatic leader, low-key, down-to-earth.
See, who does that sound like, right?
Yeah,
Quiet, like the quiet giant in the industry, Brian Benstock.
But he was, you know, talk to us about Sergio and what he ran.
Yes.
Besides just Fiat.
Yes. So Mr. Marchioni, he'll always be Mr. Marchioni to me. But in 2011, he was the chairman of Fiat Global back in 2010, and the Chrysler Corporation brought him in to run Chrysler. At that time, it was Chrysler, not Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. And he single-handedly, if you read any of the press about Mr. Marchioni, he single-handedly saved the Chrysler Corporation because he was a brilliant strategist. And I heard him give a speech in 2010. Who was in the auto industry through 08 and 09? Dark days, right?
They were in junior high school.
I know. Well, for those of you who did not learn it in your history class or your business class in high school, those were the darkest days, not only in the automotive industry, but in the American economy. And so I was in a meeting, in a room, listening to this man speak. And he gave this speech, and it was called A Promise for a Promise. And not to bore you with any of it, but the one takeaway, you know, sometimes you meet that one person in life, and they tell you the one thing you'll hold on to the rest of your life. Well, Marchione was also an attorney. He was an attorney and an accountant by degree. And he said that a professor had come into his college university class in Canada, and he had described to them what was a contract. The definition of a contract, right, is a promise for a promise. And that hit me so hard, because you see, you have a contract with Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura. You may not even know you've got a contract. It's an employment contract. And what it means is it's a promise for a promise. They promise to give you beautiful facilities, give you a wonderful car to sell, give you technology, give you everything you need to succeed. But you see, a promise is for a promise. The other side is that your promise to your organization is excellence. To be a brand ambassador 24/7, to be unapologetically fierce 365 days a year. It's a promise for a promise. That's the only way that you can successfully succeed in business. So, that was nothing that I ever learned at fashion college, I can tell you that. So as I'm standing up there, as I'm sitting there and I'm listening to this man speak and seeing how he single-handedly, and I will take that to my grave, he will save the Chrysler Corporation, which in turn will save the US economy and the American and the big three. I thought, this was in 2009, 2009, in Orlando at the dealer announcement show. I thought, I'm going to meet that guy someday. I want to meet that guy someday. And I'm probably the only person in the room who did. Now, I'm a speaker now by trade, and so I'm not like some motivational speaker tracer. But, but back then, I was just a general sales manager, a platform general sales manager. I was not even a dealer principal yet. And I said, I have to meet that man. So long story short, I end up doing a deal, have a partner, launch Fiat back to America, first store in the country to open, Austin, Texas, in a high-end shopping mall. So my neighbors were the Apple store, the Neiman Marcus. It got a little expensive every now and then. I had Chanel, I had Gucci. It was like I'd go to work and I'm thinking I have to make more money today than I spend. That was always my goal, right? If I could just keep that balance sheet at even. And so we had a lot of success, and we did well in 2011. And so I was pretty good friends with the first CEO of the Fiat brand. It was a female. And I kept telling her, I want to meet Marchione. She's like, not happening. Sorry, he's in Italy. He is the chairman of the board of Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Ferrari, Maserati, Alfa Romeo, the big train company that Fiat owns, the trucking company that Fiat owns. Oh, and by the way, he's the head of the European Auto Union.
No, stop there for a second. So some of our guys that think they have a lot on their plate, right?
Yeah.
He's made of the same thing that the men and the women here are made of, the
Yes.
same DNA. And it's really learning about how to increase your capacity. And when we watched the video, he used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so when he was in the United States, so that he can be up in the morning for the Italian calls and to get the information from Italy. They said when there was a holiday in Italy, he would come to the U.S. When there was a holiday in the U.S., he'd go to Italy. And I just want us to start thinking expansively. I know we all have a lot on our plate, but it's in our intelligent self-interest to learn to increase that capacity, not to convince yourself, your boss, your friend, how much you've got to do. Because
It's also about working smart versus harder.
Of course.
And I think Mr. Marchione worked smart, because to your point, and he was a workaholic. Yes. And so then she goes off into a different direction, and then the new CEO, or the head of the brand is what they call him. So every brand, just like Honda's got a head of the brand, and he reported to Marchione. And so one night, late night phone call, 3 months prior to us breaking, he calls me, he's like, hey, you guys are #1 in the country again. It was almost like, okay, because everyone else, I was convinced the rest of the country was asleep, or they just didn't give a damn, right? They're like, it's my Fiat store, I'll just kick it to the side. Well, that Fiat store was all I had. I invested my life savings in that Fiat store, and it was not going to fail. And talk about anxiety, when you invest your life savings and fix it again, Tony. And then you have to convince.
That was the acronym for Fiat.
Yeah.
It was Fix It Again, Tony. Those things, the perfect second car for a Fiat was a tow truck. Because he needed a tow, and he needed to come fix it again.
So, anyways, late night phone call with
These
the BIM
young
boss.
guys don't know any of the good stuff.
I know.
What's Ford stand for?
Found on road dead.
Found on road dead, or fix and repair daily.
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, I used to work with General Motors, and we had to do everything we could do to sell against that Ford truck, #1 Ford selling truck of all time. Real tough.
Yeah.
So, late night phone call, and I said, I have to meet him. And he's like, you're obsessed. And I'm like, I am. And so I'll stop the story there to say, who is the one person that you could meet in your life that would change the course of your life or your career? I didn't meet Marchione because I want to meet him because I thought he was the greatest looking man in the world. I didn't meet him because I thought he was a celebrity. I met him because I knew that if I knew him, but more importantly, if he knew me and he knew my heart for the industry, and most importantly, if he knew my heart for this brand, that it would change my life. So Tim Kaniskis and I make a bet, and we call it the bet. And so he had to call me back the next couple of days, and he said, okay, the world sales record for the little baby car, right, the hatch, is 100 units. You have to sell 100 units, and from what we can tell, all the research we've done from the first time Fiat launched in the world to now, it's 100 of the baby cars. And at that point, all we had was the hatch in Texas, in the U.S.
Selling 100 in a year?
In 30 days.
In 30 days. Okay, so let's put that in the proper perspective. That's like selling 100 Clarities in 30 days. Okay?
Are you hating on that car?
I love the Clarity. I'm just waiting for
talking
the world
about
to
the
catch up to it. Yeah. And now, I don't know, I picture, what do you picture when you see a Texan, right? I picture a guy that looks, you know, I don't know, he's got boots on and he's kind of big and he's got a cowboy hat. And have you ever seen one of those little Fiats? You're sitting it to turn sideways. So it's, and you're going to sell 100 of those in Texas in a month. Okay? Go ahead.
Thank you. So month number 1 comes, and we get to 92. And if you guys haven't figured it out yet, I was like Brian, so I was the managing partner and I was the general manager. So I was just drive. I didn't take a day off. I worked in Texas, we only worked 6 days. I worked 6 days a week for 2 years.
Oh, kill me.
Bell to bell. For the first 2 years. And because I wanted to make this brand. So we get to 92. And I mean, I can't even tell y'all, I am physically sick. I mean, I'm just like, on my team, let's go. We didn't do it. I had people from around the country calling me going, Lisa, just go buy 8 cars, stick them in your rental car fleet. And I said, no way. I will not face Mr. Marchione unless we punch 100 retail units. I don't cheat to win. Because at the end of the day, this is my story and no one will ever take it away from me. And I don't ever want someone to go back and check the records, and this is live and the whole world's watching it, and go back and say, she punched 8 fleet cars. She's not so great after all, right? Her team's not great. So I said, no, we didn't do it. I get on the phone Tim calls me that night. He says, hey, Lise, congrats, #1 in the country again. I was like, ding, ding, who cares? And I said, I need 30 more days. And he's like, for what? I go, the bet. He's like, oh God, are we still talking about that? Yeah, we're still talking about it. Because I will not go to sleep, I will not rest until I know that I did everything I could do to meet Mr. Marchione. Why do you want to meet him? Because he is somebody that will change the course of my life and my career, and I know it and I believe it to my very soul. Give me 30 more days. He said, you don't have the inventory. Because, you know, they can, just like, I mean, you guys know. I mean, the factory can see what we've got in transit, what's on the lot. I said, you don't worry about the inventory. That's my problem. I need 30 more days.
And that's what cleaners do. They just do it. You know, they don't say, oh, I don't have the car, so let me adjust the
That's an
bet,
excuse.
let me adjust the goal. The inventory, it's available someplace, right? It's available, it's on the ground.
Those trucks were coming in.
Hey, any of you guys heard of Floyd Mayweather? Yeah. Floyd's got a friend named Chop. Chop's got a friend named Lisa. Lisa, I think that was one of your competitors, right?
That was my biggest competitor.
And
Yeah.
you called your biggest competitor and said, hey, I got a bet. Hey, I want to win this bet. Hey.
Well, it was actually a different competitor. Chop, and he's probably watching. Chop wouldn't have given me the cars, although he's a very dear friend, and I introduced you to. He would have let me, whatever. But the #1, the one I diced with for #1 in Texas, he was now a Ferrari dealer. This is how God pays you back. I'm telling you right now, you help a friend, he gives you a Ferrari dealership. Yeah. So, but he had a really nice facing inventory, and I called him and I said, Tony, I need your help.
Of course it's Tony.
Tony, I need your help.
Ferrari,
You'll make it happen.
Yeah. Well, but he wasn't a Ferrari dealer then. I'm telling you, this was God's payback, as I thanked God every day for him. And I called him, and he goes, Lise, you're still on this deal? I said, I am. And so he had about 86 cars in stock. I had about 76, 80, something like that in stock. It's been 6 years. And I said, I need inventory. And so, of course, as dealers, you guys know on dealer locates, we have the ability to see our competitors' inventories. So he said, my inventory's your inventory. I want to see you do this. Now, a couple of things about that. #1, be nice to your competitors. At the end of the day, I wanted to beat them month in and month out, and we did. But I was gracious about it, right? I helped him, he helped me. The amount of money it cost him to release about probably 40 cars to me, okay, was astronomical. Because if he's not selling them, and he was really good at ordering cars, which is why I was always picking off his inventory, then if he's not selling them, I am. That means he isn't making money on the deal. But see, he was like me. He was about the brand. Because he said, it's going to be good for our brand, for your team to break the world sales record, because it'll put a light on our brand. Most unselfish thing I've ever seen.
Understand this also. When I was younger, I always hated the competition. The competition was the enemy. And as I got older, the competition is with us. And they're not the enemy. The local Honda dealer to the south of us is not our enemy. They're fellow dealers. And so when we're doing our marketing and we're doing some of the things that we're doing, we're not going after their market. We're going after the rest of the market. And we were talking yesterday about Scott Crabtree over at Paragon Honda and Acura as the #1 dealer in the country, and we go back and forth month to month. I respect the heck out of those guys. They're great. Your direct competitors make you better. And when you get to a certain level, all of a sudden you find that there's a lot of camaraderie amongst the people that are at the top. Not competition, but camaraderie. I'll help you, you help me, what do we need?
What do we got to do? All for the good of the brand.
And that's really where I want our super teams to really start working with one another, not against one another.
Oh, absolutely, because together we're better, we're stronger.
No question about it.
So I told my sales manager, so I ended up putting together a big fleet. It wasn't even fleet, it was retail, but it was a 22 car deal, and I'd been working on it. So even my customers were helping, right? Because he wasn't going to buy these 22 cars for 6 months. I called him, I'm like, smoking deal. I need the deals. So I told my sales manager, it was 2 days before month-end close, I told my sales manager, quit punching deals. I want to make them sweat at Fiat because we're going to hit it. And at that point, I knew we were going to hit it. We were flying high. And I knew I had this big deal coming in. And so I get a call. So we have until midnight to punch. I don't know about you guys on sales close, but same thing? Yeah.
We have till 11. Pahanka has till 12. I don't know how that works.
I used to say the same thing about Chop Tobin. If you're watching that right now, you sneaky little... Anyways. You know, and literally, you know, so he would call me and I'm like, you're lying. I'm hanging up. I'll call you in the morning. Click, right? They all lie. Anyways, diverting here. So I tell my sales manager, quit punching. So when the head of the brand is calling you at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time PM, you know he's nervous. He says, hey, I noticed you're like 95 cars. God, Lisa, I hate this for you. You're not going to hit it. You know, God, but good try. You're #1 in the country again. And I said, oh, Tim, you need to tell Sergio to gas up the G5. He's coming to Texas. And then I texted my sales manager who's in another office. I said, start punching. And so we go to 109. And he's just punching away, right? And so Kaniskas, he was just physically sick about it. Remember, this is live. I cannot make this story up. He goes, okay, Lisa, who have you told this story to? I go, Automotive News. And he's like, oh my God.
So why was Kaniskas sick? Because he forgot to tell the boss that he made the bet
scared
with Lisa. Mm-hmm. And so now he's got to pay the bet.
Yeah, so he's like, what do you mean you've told Automotive News? I go, in fact, no lie, because I'm very good friends with the Chrysler beat reporter at Fiat at the time, Larry Veliquit. And he's literally on the phone going, did you do it? Did you do it? Because Automotive News wanted to break the story. And I said, hey, Veliquit's on the other phone right now. He said, no, you have to stop. I haven't told Sergio. I mean, he's just like, all over it. And I said, okay. I said, Larry, I got to call you back. So anyways, so they get Chrysler PR on the deal, and they put Automotive News on, they can't go to press.
Embargo.
Thank you, embargo. They can't go to press with it. So the next day, here's my favorite part of the story. Tim thinks he's really smart. He calls me back and he says, hey, Lise, guess what? I've talked to PR. And you know that George Clooney, Pitbull, J-Lo, Charlie Sheen, all these people do our commercials in Europe. And we're going to send you, we're going to, take the plane, everything. We're going to let you go to Italy and have dinner with George Clooney. And I'm just listening to him. I'm like, I said, Tim, I got 2 problems with that. Number 1, he's not going to fly at my house. Hey, babe, I'm going to Italy to have dinner with George Clooney tonight. Okay, so there's that. So, I mean, talk about wanting to meet someone that would change your life. That would change my life negatively.
Or divorce.
Yeah. And I said, and number 2, hell no. Only Sergio will do. So he waits about almost 2 weeks to tell Mr. Marchione. And so fast forward, Mr. Marchione, because of the man and the character and the leader that he was, He showed up. I'm talking with security crew the night before. They had the whole perimeter secured. He came in a full-blown motorcade with his own security and the Austin Police Department, flew in on his G5 to the executive airport. I mean, it was like the president was coming to town. And so he and I have a private meeting, and I'm just sitting in the back room. Of course, I'm on the phone with the Chrysler executives who are in the car with him because he brings in a whole executive team when he flies or travels from Italy. And they're like, okay, Lisa, we're 5 minutes away. So I'm literally sitting in a chair, just like, what am I going to say to this guy? What am I going to say? Oh my God, did I really do this? Da da da. And I literally look up, and Marchione is standing in front of me. And I did this, and I said, oh, Mr. Marchione. And he grabs my hands, and he says this, 2 things. First of all, I am Sergio to you. And number 2, you chose me over George Clooney. So,
How to win friends and influence people.
especially an Italian man, when you choose him over George Clooney. And anyways, and it was just, it changed my life. You know, he put me on the National Dealer Council. He built me my own car, VIN number 001, the Lisa Copeland edition. He brought me a Fiat watch.
It's a pink Fiat.
Custom painted by Lambo.
Pink Fiat. And where is that now?
It is in Chuck Tobin's Car Museum.
That's great.
In Las Vegas.
And Chuck Tobin, who she introduced me to, that's what I love about Lisa. She introduces me to these interesting people. He had that TV show, what was that?
King of Cars.
King of Cars.
Yeah.
And then he's this guy with the gold chains.
Las Vegas.
And she says, listen, don't get distracted by that. He's really a nice, soft-spoken guy.
Yeah.
And I was expecting this really rough kind of guy, and I met him. He didn't drink. He was super quiet.
Which makes him no fun to go out with.
Well, but polite. And what you saw on the outside wasn't the guy on the inside. And he started talking to me about a friend of his named Floyd Mayweather. And he said, oh, we're best of friends. I've sold him over 200 cars. Mayweather's bought over 200
Yeah.
cars from Chop. And then I started following Chop.
No Fiats, though, you're saying.
No Fiats.
It's all
yeah.
Bentleys.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and but the other piece was that when Mr. Marchione came, I decided I wanted to invite the people that had contributed to our success. And so guess who was on the front row when Mr. Marchione came? My #1 competitor, Tony. And he came in to celebrate, and I brought him up to meet Mr. Marchione. And I said, Mr. Marchione, this is the man right here who made sure that I had the inventory. Well, who are you? Well, I'm her biggest competitor in Texas. I've got the Houston dealership. Now, I've never heard this before, but I'm convinced that that's why he got a Ferrari dealership.
Yeah.
I got a pink car, he gets a Ferrari store. What's wrong with that story? Did not hurt him, the cred at all, when he's telling the chairman of Ferrari. Who is it? What is it you can do that will change your life, that will change the direction of your career? Is it the work that you will do here? Probably. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to work for a more high-profile dealership in the country. You're not going to work for anybody who's an innovator. All you're going to work for, if you ever left here, you're going to work for someone who follows Brian Benstock.
The interesting part for me is that we sometimes look at our numbers and we think that the numbers that show that we're doing well mean that we're the best. And I think that could be a head fake for us. Lisa told me about this guy named Glenn Lundy in Kentucky.
They're watching, I
And the
think, right
first
now.
thing when she tells me about Glenn Lundy in Kentucky,
Paris, Kentucky.
Paris,
I might add.
Kentucky, right?
Yes.
And population 12. And then she starts telling me about how many cars they're selling every month.
Love that guy.
What is it? How many cars?
1,000.
They're selling 1,000 cars a month.
Population 9,000.
And they're selling like every 9 people a car every month in Kentucky. First of all, how do you get them bought in Kentucky? I mean, what do
They
they
got
do for a
good
living?
credit in Kentucky.
What do they do for a living in Kentucky?
They raise horses.
Oh, come on.
And cows.
How many horses, how many cows?
Oh, wow.
But
Who had hamburger for lunch yesterday?
Yeah, right.
They were not raised here in New York, I can tell you that.
So then I start following Glenn Lundy. And what a guy. What a guy. And as a general manager of a store and the people that he's able to attract and the salespeople are doing some special stuff. And so I'm saying, hey, I want our team to stop following a guy like Glenn Lundy. And we can learn not just from our
2% club, remember?
not just our inner circle, but the outer circle that we have access to. And again, the inner circle guys, the people that are really successful, are really interested in helping other people. They don't keep the recipe to themselves. They understand if they give 90% of the people the recipe, there's no way they're going to bake the cake.
They're not.
So they don't mind giving the recipe. They're hoping that the recipe that they get to those 1 or 2%ers, they can change their lives. They're hoping for that. They're not hating, they're hoping.
Yeah, I mean, there is no room for hate in this business. And I used to tell my team about Paragon Honda back in the day. And I've got this fantastic friend who's in Queens, New York. I think of Queens, I think of The Nanny. I'm sorry, it was my favorite show ever back in the 80s. You know?
Fran Drescher?
Yes. Love her.
Wow.
Yeah, that and Will and Grace. Like, you know, I could have been a New Yorker. Yeah, but that being said, so I mean, those of us who sit, it isn't that we have to go tell our own stories. We tell our friends' stories. And he beat me to the punch on Lundy because I would have brought the story up. A very dear friend of mine, sitting in Paris, Kentucky.
And guys, you got to follow this guy.
And Sean Hayes.
And Sean Hayes. These guys are there every day. They've got a live show on Facebook called Rise and Grind. And at 5:30 in the morning, I'm sitting in my home office watching these guys rise and grind, and they're just hitting you with good stuff. And it's love, and it's respect, and it's sales, and nobody's talking about the easy way. They're talking about here's what we need to do.
You know, but they're also not like, you know, some of these people that some people follow in this room, potentially, or around in the sales community. It's like, oh, you got to be this, you got to be so cool, you got to be like, stop already. Nobody likes an arrogant salesperson. And every one of us in this room, I'm a salesperson. You ask me to this day, if you know, especially when I had a dealership, when I was at a cocktail party, oh, Lisa, what do you do for a living? I'm like, I'm a car dealer. Hell no, I'm a car salesman. And because of me and my team, we keep the American economy moving forward, and I'm proud of it.
We didn't rehearse that. They've heard the story 1,000 times. When I'm out with my wife, and someone says, what do you do for a living? And I said, I sell cars.
Yep.
And my wife is making a policy. No, he's the general manager,
Yeah.
you know, chief, whatever. And I said, I sell cars.
That's right. That's what we do.
And I love selling cars. And we sell lots of cars. Lots of cars.
Because it isn't any fun if we're not selling lots of cars. Who the hell wants to be number 2 in this room, right? And I give him hell every time you guys come in number 2. I'll text him, hey, Ricky Bobby, what's going on?
I don't even know who Ricky Bobby is. You know why?
You should.
Because he's number 2. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and in fact, we were here, she was here a couple of weeks ago in the store. She's walking through the store, and she said to me, she sort of took a poke at me a little bit like, hey, you guys aren't really digging in to the deals.
Okay, go ahead and just get me mobbed on the way out.
No, but they're not digging into the deals. And I think a lot of the reason for that is when you're in a Fiat store and a customer walks in the door, you may not see another customer for a
breakfast,
month.
lunch, and dinner.
And we can sometimes take that for granted. I told her about what we did with the activation last week in the store and with the ride share and really hitting it out of the park. And you know, I think we've got a lot of really good things.
Well, I mean, and I'll say to you to that, number 1, impressive. Just the fact that, you know, you were able to get ahead of what was coming, which I love, but that's so your strategy. But number 2,
wait
you know.
till you see what's next.
I know. But number 2, so many times as automobile dealers and retailers, you know, we take that whole gunslinger approach. You know, we're just going to try to hit everybody, right? So what you guys did last week with this ride share, with what you did with your 140 something cars that you sold, it was sniper.
Yeah.
Bam, right? The sniper approach is going to win every single time. I promise you. You will work, I mean, talk about working smarter versus hard. Take a sniper approach.
Right message, right customer at the right time. Yeah, that's really what we're looking for. And you know, I'm excited to say that we're looking now at intelligence to help us with that. We've all got the data. You know, the DMS system that we have at Paragon has the most robust Honda database in the country. Top 2, top 3 databases in the country. Everyone's got data sitting in DMS. You know, the next
Most people don't use it.
The next iteration for us is to use artificial intelligence to suck the data out of the machine to deliver to us the right message, the right customer at the right time. And I can say this live because there's not a chance in heck that somebody else is going to be able to figure it out. Not ahead of us. We're out of the box early with it, but it's really data management is going to be the edge that any dealer has today over.
But Brian, you have to use it.
Yeah.
You have to utilize it. You guys have to embrace the fact that your leadership, not only are you guys using the data and the technology, you guys are innovating it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure whether you realize that or not. Maybe I'm speaking out of school by saying that, but you are, and your leaders are the innovators of that technology. That's huge.
We're creating.
If you're not first, you're last. Remember I told you that. Ricky Bobby.
What we're calling an intelligence management system that will take the information out of the computer that will help us to deliver the right message to the right customer before they even know that they're in market. Because there are patterns, and we want to follow the patterns and then serve up the right message to the right customers. And we just touched on this last week. We touched on this. I was telling the marketing team, have this in place for August 1st, and then deploy the missiles on August 3rd. And on August 5th, on a
beautiful.
Friday,
It was the most beautiful thing I've ever
45
seen
new cars,
execution-wise.
65 cars on Saturday, 45 new cars on Sunday.
You
And
think the Ford store across the street did that?
no, they were standing, their faces up, pressed up against the window. What was going on?
Hey, you want an F-150 over there across the street?
And so the next thing is not to be patting ourselves on the back that we executed properly. It's to back off, digest the data, and find the learnings. What worked? What worked and how did it work? What could we do better? What could we do differently, knowing what we know now? And then let's go back at it again. There are some things I won't say live, but we are working on being able to do that in many different respects of the transportation business that will be launching over the next 35 to 45 days. But the most important thing is the message for me, for us, is we can do it. And we can do it better than anybody else. And in fact,
But Brian, two things for you and your team that I'll say. Not only are you an innovator, which I've always respected about you, but you're an executionist. See, so many people sit around. How many people in this room had a great idea? Like, I think I invented Post-it notes 20 years ago. Swear to God, I used to tape a piece of paper on my textbook with tape. Duh. Okay, I used to think, this is like back in the 80s, I used to think, God, if I could just get the tape to stick on the back of that piece of paper and I could just stick it on my textbook so I can go in and get it. Okay, I had Post-it notes in my head. I just didn't get it out. Right? It's execution.
she spent the day with me yesterday in my office, and I think your mind got blown yesterday.
Yes.
The level of conversations that we're having
Yes.
surrounding some of the things that we're doing with the people.
The most high level I've sat in on probably ever.
Yeah, and again, I think there is a contract between us. I'm going to do my part to bring the best in technology and understanding and knowledge to the team, and I need you to do your part and to execute. But not to execute, you know, the thermostat sometimes gets set at 70 degrees, and as soon as it starts to get above 70 degrees, you guys cool it down a little bit. So if you're a salesperson and your thermostat's set at 20 cars, and you get 20 cars by the first 15 days of the month, all of a sudden you back down a little bit because you become
that's when you go.
You become uncomfortable. We need to keep pushing that thermostat up. And if the standard was 20, now it's 25. Then it gets to 30. Then it gets to 35. And who's your friend, Ali?
Oh, Ali Rita.
Talk to us about Ali.
I hope Ali's watching. So my friend Ali Rita, he's in Dearborn, Michigan. You guys heard of him yet? He broke the world sales record of all time. Joe Girard was the #1 car salesman in the world, and I think he set the record in 1976. My friend Ali Rita is now the Guinness Book World Record car salesman of the world. And so I do a show, and he was on my show. He was my first guest on my show. Talk about the most humble, nice human being I've ever met in my entire life. I'm like, Ali, you broke Joe Girard's record. Now, most of you are not young. Most of you are young, too young to know who Joe Girard was. But some of us who've been in the business, who in this room knows who Joe Girard? And I say was because he's yesterday's news.
Now, stop. I'm going to interrupt. I always do. My boss, Paul Singer, brought Joe Girard, and you talk about that one person changed your perspective on things. Brought Joe Girard with John Rosati from Plaza together, all the sales teams for both stores, to the JFK Airport, a hotel there, and Joe Girard spoke. And I can tell you that was 1983, and I can tell you it changed my career. Because when Girard got up there and started talking, he talked about being proud about being a car salesperson. He talked about how successful he was, that he was delivering 6 cars a day. And
That's successful today's standards.
And I'm looking
Rock
6
star.
cars a day. Wow. And then he started talking about the income that he was earning, and the income that he was earning was several $100,000. And I never saw the possibility of being able to do that. And he was doing it in Morolles Chevrolet. And I can tell you that meeting caused me to change my perspective. He started talking about his communication, and I started sending out postcards to every customer that was in my personal database. It's about 1,100 a month.
But you know what? You can still do that. You know, in today's world, how often do you get a handwritten note? I'm gonna tell you guys a funny story. He'll probably slap me, but so, you know, he put me up at the Lowell Hotel. You know, you come to Paragon, whatever, and I get a card.
The screen with the camera screen.
I get a card that says Mrs. Benstock, and I called downstairs. I'm like, can I just have the credit card number? Like, I'm not gonna tell you I'm not. If I just have the credit card, go shopping, right? But it was a handwritten note. They didn't have my name right, but that's okay. But it was a handwritten note.
Well, I made arrangements for her to be able to stay, and so they thought it was my family, so that, of course they have a handwritten note waiting in the room.
Because he's a VIP.
For Mrs. Benstock. And what did it cost them to do that? A bunch of nothing.
Right.
But the personalization is everything.
So everybody in this room could continue to write handwritten notes. Okay, be different. Set yourself apart. I'll tell you some of the
Does
stats.
that not tie into what we did yesterday with Scott Galloway? And
Oh, yeah.
talking about shifting advertising dollars to experience, the experience
about to hit
in
the
the store,
experience.
and then post-sale experience.
Mm-hmm.
To get those customers to come back to you, to be sending you other customers. Let's spend less on advertising and concentrate a little bit more on the experience.
And every one of you needs to be a car star. That's just a whole nother sermon that he can bring me back in and put me at the Lowell Hotel to talk about. But by 2020, price will not be the determining factor in the car buying process. It'll be the customer experience. You see, how many of us shop on Amazon? How many of us go Prime? When you're on Prime, are you comparing it to what you could go buy it for? No. The experience is you don't have to go anywhere to pick it up. I know it's more money to shop on Prime. I know it is. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's about the experience, right? And so one of the things that, Brian is so good at, and I think it was a very good indicator for him when you guys did the ride share thing. But, sometimes there's some blind spots. So when I sold my dealership a couple years ago, the one thing that I prided myself on in the automotive industry, that it isn't and I still do, it isn't what you sell, it's what you stand for. And if you stand for something big enough, people buy what you're selling. So in the land of trucks and SUVs, we sold a hell of a lot of Fiats. And why did we do it? Not because a lot of people liked the car. They bought it because what we did was right and good in the community. We raised $300,000 on my showroom floor for Girl Scouts USA. I was the chair for Go Red, for the American Heart Association for Women. I brought in Mrs. Bush to speak. I saw you guys posted a picture. Well, she was my keynote speaker. I was the chair. It was the biggest fundraiser in Texas that the American Heart Association's ever done. 900 people in the room. I didn't do it to sell cars, but don't think for a minute I didn't sell cars. Okay? It isn't what you sell, it's what you stand for. And everybody in this room has the opportunity to stand for something bigger than yourself.
Talk to us quickly about the car stars. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
I know we could spend an hour on that. But
I know.
think it's really important that the men and women here understand that the personal branding that they can do for themselves can really catapult their career.
Okay, well, first of all, just that you said that is bigger than 99.9% of the dealer principals in this country, because they're afraid for their sales teams to build their own personal brands. Hashtag big mistake. So there's 2 dealers in the country that I know that are into it. Paris, Kentucky, our friend Glenn Lundy at Dan Cummins Chevrolet, and Brian Benstock at Paragon Honda and Acura. You see, every one of you in this room is an entrepreneur. What Paragon gives you is a desk, a marketing budget, a fantastic product, and a reputation that is the best in the nation.
Everyone here has access to
Everything.
$28 million worth of new cars as of this morning, access to $5 million on the Honda side in used car inventory. I think it's $14 million in Acura new car inventory, somewhere around $3 million in used car inventory with no cost. You pay no rent. You don't have to pay for telephones. You don't have to pay for
It's a beautiful
connection. And somebody told me that when I was complaining as a salesperson, I don't have this, I don't have that. And someone pointed out to me, your boss put you in business. He didn't charge you rent. He didn't charge you for your desk. He didn't charge you for the customers coming in the door. He didn't charge you for the inventory. He said, sell as many as you can sell. And I realized, if I can't make it under those conditions, how would you ever be a business person
Or be a dealer principal.
on your own, where you do have rent and you do have to pay for everything?
And I'm just going to give you a little something that you're probably not going to hear from these guys, but I'm going to tell you because I was a car dealer. A good car dealer operates at about a 6% net. After everything's paid on your sales department, right? 3 to 6%. Your Fiat dealer is lower than that. I'm going to tell you all that right now. Happiest day of my life is when service kicked in and those little suckers broke, so it was good. But anyways, but with that being said, from a sales department side, okay? So you're the dealer principal, the person on the sign is making 2, 3, 4, 5, 6%, depending on the sales piece. As a salesperson, you're making anywhere from 20 to 25 to whatever your pay plan is. So you're doing better as an entrepreneur in your own dealership. Hang your own shingle. Hang your own shingle at your desk, in your cubicle, in your office, because you are more profitable. You're bringing more money home to your family for every car you sell than Mrs. Singer and Mr. Benstock. From a percentage standpoint, it is the greatest entrepreneurial opportunity in America is to sell cars, because you're making more than the man or the woman on the sign. So how do you become a car star? you become, what's your first name? Madeline. This is Madeline's Paragon Honda. And every single day, Madeline can go out and Madeline can make a video.
Superstar.
That's right. Madeline.
Come on, man. We have to encourage the people with the smiles and Louise and Jennifer and Tina.
Hey, Madeline, here you go, sister.
No, Tina?
Big sellers, go big or go home. I hate mediocrity. In fact, I wrote a book about it, Crushing Mediocrity, 10 Ways to Rise Above the Status Quo. You don't need to be mediocre, but every single one of you is an independent, I'm charging you for that, huh? Every single person in this room is an independent contractor, even though you're not. You got someone paying your taxes. We've got a wonderful HR director, Donna, back here that showed up on a Saturday.
Wow.
Okay? Who is concerned about your benefits.
And she's writing somebody up, right?
Yeah. No, but you have health insurance. Self-employed. You have
bigly.
everything. Think big.
Think bigly.
Become a star. Get on this phone. Do a Facebook Live. So what my team is going to bring in here is the company I started is called Cars Her Way, and it really is a very systematic approach to attracting and retaining female consumers, which we actually bring them in through marketing and through technology. It's a very laser sniper boom, right? Because why shouldn't every woman in New York do business with the best sales team, the best dealership in the country? But I will tell you guys and ladies, statistically, now this is a nationwide statistic, but it's real. 77% of women feel like they have to bring someone with them to buy a car. Not because they're stupid. Women love to shop, right? To us, shopping is experiential. That's one of the reasons I launched the Fiat brand in a high-end shopping center. Oh, and I might add, Elon came in 6 months later. We were there first, okay? Anyways, that being said, because I said, what do women want? Because I knew that women are 85% influencers. I asked Brian yesterday in an interview, I said, what goes into your house without Mrs. Benstock's approval? Nothing. How about the health care of your family? The children, the schools that your children go to.
Just healthcare for a second.
Yeah.
Salome was reviewing with me the healthcare plan. And she said, I think this is your plan, and Donald wanted me to explain something. I said, it can't be my plan, it's $799. I think my plan's more expensive than that. She goes, no, this is your plan. I said, it can't be my plan, it's $799. I know my plan's more expensive than that. She goes, no, this is your plan, it's $799 a week for healthcare.
Yeah.
$799.
Yeah, I believe it.
So the expenses of running a dealership require today that everybody on board the ship is rolling. I think I looked at this.
But at least you can get group health care, because if you're an entrepreneur, you cannot.
Yeah, the health care for Paragon right now runs about $1 million a year. $1 million a year. But just that's one expense in the place. And I was really pleased with Mrs. Singer's decision to not pass on the increase in cost.
Which was probably 28% at least.
It wasn't that high, but it was. It's just it's crazy the amount that's raising, and it's our success that enables us to do stuff like that. So there really is something to us. And the healthcare, unfortunately, you don't get a check every week, so you don't realize the expense of it. But the company's paying that out every week. When I looked at $799 a week, that's more than I earned for a good portion of my life. The $799, and I said to myself, don't ever forget that. And I wouldn't do without it. I couldn't do without it.
Right, but there's a lot of people in this country that do.
Yeah.
And so, that being said, what an incredible opportunity you have. You sit at the biggest and best dealership in the nation. If you're ever number 2 again, I'm going to start calling each of your cell phones. In fact, I might just send out a massive text. #RickyBobby from Lisa in Texas. Okay? Because there isn't any reason for you guys to be number 2.
Hey, Lisa, how do they follow you to get something for them? And I'm not. This is not pitching them to spend money. I don't want them to. I want them to start.
You act like I'm expensive to work with.
Those shoes are free, right? I want them to be able to start mixing it up with people from the outside.
Yeah, Big Sellers Mastermind Group. It's a private Facebook group, and it's only for people in sales, all verticals, right? But it's a private group. I have to let you in, and things like the exclusive interview with Brian yesterday for an hour. I wouldn't put those on my public pages. It's only for my people, right?
And we don't want that. Really, it's a group of winners. We want the winners. We want to weed out the wannabes that are in there, the haters that are frowning.
Yeah, zero negativity allowed in my group, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own success. So anyways, so my team's going to come in here and we're going to bring in systems and targeted advertising and marketing and technology that will help drive more women consumers to Paragon Honda and Paragon Acura. And you guys are the only Honda and Acura store in New York that we're endorsing because I know the leader. And next week we're rolling out to the #1 Toyota store in Texas and the #2 Toyota store in Texas, who are just like, please, please.
Think of a lot of the
but I'm
niche
like, Paragon's first.
Think of the niche markets that we've been going after, whether it be rideshare, whether it be the Asian group, or whether it be Hispanic advertising. There's no group bigger than women. And we really have no targeted messaging.
And women are not
women.
a niche. We are the #1 influencer in the world. But gentlemen sitting in this room, I want to assure you, this is all about, and Brian knows because we appointed him to the board of Women in Automotive with Chip Perry, the head of TrueCar. I mean, the 10 men that sit on our board are the most influential leaders in the automotive industry. And why we chose them is because we want to change the face of this industry. We want inclusive. We want equality. We want men and women to be able to work together and everybody in the room succeed, both men and women. We want to help provide automobile dealerships, provide female consumers. And I'm considered, I've been on Fox National, I've got more coming up on that. But, so I'm considered one of the top advocates for female consumers in the country. Because I want women and men to have an elevated buying experience, to go to dealerships that truly care not only about the consumer experience, but they care about their employees. Have you guys ever had a crappy job where, they don't care about the employees? How does that make you treat your customer? It's not good, right?
And keep in mind also, I have 4 daughters.
Well, I was going to get into your legacy.
And
I want the little one though.
I certainly want my daughters to have whatever opportunities they may want to explore in any industry.
Right.
And so.
But it's also about the men, Brian, and we call it Cars Her Way, we call it Women in Automotive, but half of our audience is men, half of our supporters are men, because we've got to find a way in the automotive industry for men and women to be able to work together.
I don't understand women, and I get, we go to the Women in Automotive thing, and they have like this booth for free tampons. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm not a user, so I don't know the value prop there. But Julian and I look, I'm like, there's a big pink booth, and I'm like, it's weird,
This
man.
is live, Brian.
I got it, but it was weird. And so you fully have to understand. You don't understand what you don't understand. I don't understand it, but that's a blind spot on my part. And so, maybe there's more things that we can do along those lines. Maybe there's a lot of other things in retail that we as men don't understand.
So I'm looking for volunteers, and it will be for both men and women who want to step forward and lead in this initiative for Cars Her Way. And we need men too. So I don't want you guys to think, you men, that this is to bring and attract more customers. See, it becomes a market differentiator for you. When you become known in your community as people, as a business that supports diversity, that supports equality, that when women walk in here, they feel comfortable. They can work with a man, they can work with a woman, but all of a sudden now they see men and women working together, and they are provided with an incredible consumer experience.
Imagine what it must be like to be a woman to walk into the dealership and to see a bunch of men in suits.
I'm going to tell you,
that may be a little bit.
You guys look good though.
A little bit off-putting or intimidating, and it's not meant to be that. We want to look like professionals.
You do.
But when somebody walks in, if a woman walks in by
I'm like,
herself,
where are the girls? Where are the girls? Where are the girls?
She always does that. So I'm glad. And each of you that are paid actresses, will be paid. Thank you for showing up. But we do have a really good balance there. But I think the Business Development Center is a really great place to career path people to get into sales and to sales management. Marat came out of the Business Development Center. It was unusual to have a man in there, and he became really great at his craft, and then became a salesperson. Then won the National Walk-Around Championship, then became a junior manager, and then now he's at the Acura store doing a fantastic
But everybody, who in this room someday aspires to own their own dealership? It's really overrated, so if you don't raise your hand, I'm good with it.
Wow. That's it?
Okay.
Well,
But how many
smart. I told you they're smart.
I know, they're very smart. How many people in this room aspire to go to the next level in your career?
Gosh.
Okay, the rest of you can go home.
Right.
It's a complete waste of time this morning, right? Everybody. So I started out as a car salesman, as did Brian. I was not the wife or the daughter of a dealer, okay? I worked my way up, just like everybody in this room can. And I love to tell people, as my part, is that if I can do it, you can do it.
That's right.
And I can do it in heels all day long. That's a little more painful.
Now, were you at that meeting where that Jeff, the coach Harborough spoke. Was that the ALR you went to?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
John?
I was in a couple of the ALRs.
Jack Harbaugh.
Jack said something.
Oh, Glenn Lundy's texting us. I bet you he was watching this live. Let's
Okay,
just
good.
see what he has to say.
Okay.
Keep going, I'm sorry.
So he had this thing that he talked to his children about, and what he talked to his kids about was every day they moved 17 times. He said in 15 years, and when he was getting the kids in the station wagon, he was taking them to their new home, their new town, and mom was left behind to sell the house. He'd tell the kids, "Who's got it better than we do?" And the kids were all there pouting, they're upset, they're moving, and the kids wouldn't answer. He said, "Who's got it better than we do?" And the kids would say back, "Nobody." And they move again, and he says, "Kids, who's got it better than we do?" And the kids, "Nobody." And by the end of 5 or 6 moves, he said, "Who's got it better than we do?" And they screamed back, "Nobody." And he told this story of the most amazing thing. His 2 children are coaching in the NFL. His 2 children bring their respective teams to the Super Bowl on the opposite side. That's never happened before in sports.
I'm
2
getting
children.
now.
He said him and his wife went up into the booth and they sat where they couldn't be seen because they didn't want to be seen rooting for one son over the other son. And he said, wasn't it an amazing payback? Wasn't it an amazing payback when they showed the locker room of one of the teams and his son gets in front of all of the football players and says, "Who's got it better than we do?" And the kids scream, the football players scream back, "Nobody!" And he said, "Oh my God, what I taught those kids like him is being used in the NFL at the top level." And I think that's really an important lesson for us. And I think we can take for granted. I think in the automotive space, nobody's got it better than we do. And I'm going to ask you the question. I'd like a little intensity, if you can have it. Okay? Just
For those of you who want to get promoted.
Okay. Who's got it better than we do? Nobody! Again, who's got it better than we do? Nobody! I love these guys.
I love these guys too.
Lisa, thank you
Yeah.
for being a part of our team. I tell you, we go off camera now. I really love people like Lisa. It is an absolute blessing to go around the country and to meet other people. And I never would have thought this, but 99.9% of the people we meet, they have the quality of niceness. And I think of a John Osborne, right? You met John. John is in our Acura 20 group. And the first time he met me, he said, "Hey, talk to me about this and that you're doing with used cars." And I assisted him. He's doing a phenomenal job with used cars. And he just smiled. I asked him, "Hey, we're struggling now a little bit with used cars. Let's reach out to you for assistance." And he got on the phone with Justin and Murad and spent an hour plus on the phone of his time giving them the best information and advice. We had a pretty good month last month. And John called me up and said, "Hey," because in the 20 group you share everything. You share information, financial statements. And he said, "Hey, nice job last month. Really nice job." And so it's reciprocal. And I look at the other people that we're doing business with around the country, and it's super niceness. And so we need to do a better job helping each other to succeed.
But I want to say something to that. And I wrote about this in my book. Not that I'm trying to sell books, Amazon.com, Crushing Mediocrity. But that being said, because remember, I'm a car salesman. I'll sell you anything, except for my grandkids. My kids, they're gone. Anyways, but that being said, one of the chapters in my book, because I did not experience this in my career, I experienced it from the outside. Okay, from my friends on the outside, which is why if this guy calls me, I show up. End of story. But it's rooting. You have to root for each other. See, it doesn't do any good to be against each other on a sales team. You got to root for each other. You got to help each other. You've got to root for the man or woman who's on the sign. How many times do I go to organizations and people pull me aside? "Oh my God, my dealer principal." I'm like, you know what? Then go get a new job. Because if you cannot root for the boss, okay, whether it's your sales manager, if it's your general manager, if it's Mrs. Singer, whoever it might be, you've got to root for each other. You've got to root for your boss. You've got to root for the man or the woman that signs your paycheck. Because if you don't have the capacity to do that, there's no one in the world ever going to root for you. Ever. And we all need that. This is not an easy business. The car business is not for sissies. And think about us women who have to do it. You know what they say, Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. You know, Ginger Rogers did the same thing Fred Astaire did, but backwards and in heels. That's how it is.
But they don't know who Ginger Rogers is.
I know.
Listen, you know,
Brian, we're so
we
old.
are. We absolutely are. Anyhow, guys, thank you for your time today, and
Yes,
I appreciate
thank
your attendance and being on time.